Okay, let me ask you something. What if you could achieve a whole year's worth of progress in just a fraction of the time? Sounds kind of out there, right? Well, today, we're exploring this idea of the quantum leap, a pretty radical formula for personal transformation, and we're going to unpack it through the incredible story of one of its biggest champions ever, the legendary Bob Proctor.
So, to really get this, we've got to go back to where Bob Proctor's own quantum leap began. Picture this. It's 1961. Proctor, he's got no formal education, zero business experience. His income goes from $4,000 a year to $175,000, and he did it all in just one single year.
Now you're probably thinking, okay, he must have had some amazing, meticulous business plan, right? But here's the thing. Proctor himself said, no, that wasn't it at all. He said it was an almost instantaneous result that came from a huge, fundamental shift in his thinking, and it was all triggered by just one powerful idea.
So what on earth caused this massive shift? Well, it all started with a single book. Just one. And it was this book that set him on a path of lifelong study and proved to him, beyond a doubt, the unbelievable power of an idea.
That book was Napoleon Hill's classic, Think and Grow Rich. Proctor gave full credit for that initial life-altering leap to his study of this one text. And I mean, he didn't just read it once, he studied it every single day for the rest of his life.
You know, over his decades-long career, people were always asking Proctor to name the most important books he'd ever read. The list was always the same three. And just look at the company you² is keeping here, right alongside two of the most legendary texts in the history of personal development. That alone tells you everything about the kind of impact this little book had on him.
And that brings us to the book that's at the heart of this whole explainer. Sometime in the late 80s, Proctor discovered you², a book that took all the principles he'd been studying for decades and just launched them into a completely new dimension.
This is the book's promise, right there on the cover. See, it's not about slow, steady improvement. It's a high-velocity formula. And you got to notice those key words. It's about multiplying your effectiveness and doing it in quantum leaps. And here's the real kicker. This book, it's tiny. We're talking 36 pages of actual text, but Proctor claimed it packed as much high-oxygen energy for the mind as the entirety of Think and Grow Rich. That's just how dense this thing is with game-changing ideas. Okay, so let's really get into the core idea here, because this is absolutely crucial. What exactly is a quantum leap according to the author, Price Pritchett? Well, the book defines it as an explosive jump in your performance that puts you far beyond the next logical step. I mean, think about it like this. This isn't about climbing a ladder one rung at a time. It's about figuring out how to skip half the ladder completely. And this just illustrates the difference so perfectly. On one side, you have the way we're all taught to think. Conventional, incremental progress. You know, you add to your efforts, you take the next logical step, and it's usually a struggle. But on the other side, you have the quantum leap. It's all about multiplying your effectiveness with these high-velocity moves that honestly just seem to violate common sense. The author, Pritchett, he knew this. He addresses it head-on. He says the whole idea is so counterintuitive that it can feel outrageous. And when Bob Proctor first read that line, it's like a light bulb went off. He realized that's exactly what happened to him back in 1961. It made no logical sense, but it happened anyway. So how in the world do you actually make one of these quantum leaps happen? Well, according to you², it all starts with being willing to just abandon the old rules of success and adopt a completely new mindset.
And this is one of the most radical new rules. I mean, we live in a world that is obsessed with hustle, with the grind. But what if the key to exponential growth wasn't trying harder, but something else entirely?
This is a core principle of the book. It basically says that these high-velocity moves can launch you to dramatically higher levels of performance without that time-consuming struggle we've all been taught is necessary for success. Now, this isn't about being lazy, not at all. It's about shifting your focus from just brute force to more elegant, high-leverage moves. And here's the next rule, and this one is huge. It's about letting go of that need to see all the resources in front of you before you make a move. This isn't about magic. It's about trusting your intuition, acting on an idea before it's perfectly formed, and just having faith that opportunities you can't even see yet will show up. It really requires a trust in forces that exist beyond what we can immediately perceive. So look, this isn't just some fascinating theory from the 80s.
Bob Proctor made these principles the absolute bedrock of his entire organization. Let's take a look at how these ideas actually translate into real-world application.
The proof is in the pudding, as they say. By teaching the material from you² and Think and Grow Rich, Proctor literally built a global company. This was never just a feel-good philosophy for him. It was a practical business strategy that created tangible, worldwide success.
And that philosophy is still evolving. Price Pritchett, the author of the original book, he's now taken these really dense concepts and structured them into a modern masterclass. It's designed to give people a step-by-step way to apply these principles directly to their own lives.
And Bob Proctor, who, let me tell you, rarely gave such strong endorsements. He was one of the very first to champion this masterclass. He didn't just recommend it, he guaranteed its life-changing potential. That's just how deeply he believed in the power of these ideas.
So it all kind of boils down to this, doesn't it? We are all conditioned to think in these small incremental steps, but this material asks a really provocative question. What would actually be possible if you stopped focusing on just the next rung on the ladder and instead you aimed for a quantum leap?